Motherhood can be so lonely, but it doesn't have to be. This week's podcast is to help moms feel less lonely in the roller coaster that is being a mom. The show is called Mom Group Chat, where Candace, Whitney, and Shannon bring their actual text group chat to a podcast. I'm Andy Smiley, the Friendly Podcast Guide. I'm a mom who has used podcasts to fight the boredom and loneliness of motherhood, and now I want to help you find a podcast that can do the same thing for you. It can be overwhelming to try and find a podcast you'll enjoy in the thousands of shows that are out there. That's where I come in. My episodes are short, and they answer all of the questions you'll have about the podcast, so you'll know if it's a good fit for you or not. I'm here to help you find a podcast you'll love without wasting your time. Now, let's talk podcasts. These three ladies describe the show like this. Mom Group Chat is a podcast for moms who are not perfect, but trying their best. We're three best friends who have spent the past 2 years blowing up each other's phones for honest conversation around how our lives took a full 180 in the blink of an eye. We're tired, we're covered in yogurt, we're obsessed with our baby's chubby cheeks, we're happiest alone in the car, and we're trying to make sense of it all in our group chat. The length of each episode is between 30 minutes and an hour. Before we learn about the vibe of Mom Group Chat, we're going to take a quick break to talk about my free podcast consultations. I've been able to talk to some amazing podcasters about their shows while doing interviews for the Friendly Podcast Guide. And along the way, I've learned so many tips and tricks on how to start a podcast from the hosts I've interviewed and from personal experience. I've talked to podcast hosts about what made their launch successful and what made it more difficult. And I for sure know what I would do differently if I could go back and launch my show again. And I want to share my knowledge with you. That's why I'm offering free podcast consults. And I have a couple of spots open in the next month. If you need help nailing down your podcast idea, figuring out your niche, or have any other podcast questions, I would love to work with you to make your show's launch the best it can be. If you're interested in working with me, fill out the intake form in the show notes. I can't wait to answer any and all of your podcast questions. Now we get to hear from Candace as she talks about being pregnant at the same time as her friends and some of her favorite podcast episodes so far. Candace, thank you so much for being on the Friendly Podcast Guide today. Before we dive into your show, can you introduce yourself a little bit to my listeners?
Sure. My name is Candace Donnelly. I am one of the hosts of the Mom Group Chat podcast. I am a mom of 18-month-old Alice. And I am pregnant with my second girl due in February. And I'm so excited to be here.
That is exciting and also really hard. I definitely did that with both, so each of my kids are 2 years apart. So we were in your same boat and it sucks, but also it's kind of nice just to have them all close together because they all just hang out together. Not all the time, but they're definitely all friends. So it's fun.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how I was. I was like, let's pop them out and get it over with.
Yep.
And
yes.
Yeah, I have two brothers and we're all about 2 years apart and I loved that age gap. So that was kind of our goal, was to emulate that.
I love it. And when it works, it's great, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it gives me too much of a sense of I have control over my life when I really don't. But you take what you can get.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I know there are two other hosts on your show. Can you just tell me their names and maybe a cool, funny fact about them so that we can get to know them a smidge too?
Totally. So the other two guests are Whitney Williams, who is literally going to have a baby any day now, but she already has an almost 2-year-old Graydon and she lives in Nashville, Tennessee. And then we have Shannon Finn, who also is pregnant. We're all three pregnant at the same time. This is our second round of the pregnancy pact, as we call it. And she has TJ, who will be 2 at the end of this year. And her new baby is due almost around the same time as well. And the three of us are best friends. Shannon is my very, very best friend, the maid of honor of my wedding. And Whitney is my best friend from college. And really the three of us have gone through pregnancy together, and truly our group chat, of which we literally called Mom Group Chat, kind of got us through pregnancy and through these early stages of motherhood. And so yeah, we are just each other's like people. And we kind of wanted to take that and bring it to a bigger community and a bigger platform. And that is really why we started Mom Group Chat.
Well, that was going to be my first question. So it
I
sounds
know. I'm
like
sorry.
this...
I kind of ran into
Oh,
it.
no, I love it. Well, and I love that it started as a real group chat that you just want to bring other moms to, because especially in pregnancy, you feel so alone sometimes. And
Totally.
having a group, having someone to turn to ask your questions, or at least like commiserate with, is so wonderful and just makes the pregnancy at least a smidge easier.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly how we felt. We felt like so many important conversations were happening inside of our like private little group chat. Not only that, but like those important conversations, but also like the laughs and the tears and the stuff that makes you feel less alone was happening in our group chat. And we just felt like that was missing in the scheme of like motherhood in general. We felt like so many other people were looking for community. That was the number one thing that we felt moms really needed. Somewhere that was like relatable and funny, that like is not too complainy. We still love being moms, but there's a lot of hard stuff that goes into it, and a lot of stuff that's not openly talked about. And is just talked about in everyone's private group chat. So we're bringing those chats to the mic and having those conversations while laughing and crying and doing all of those things as well. Yeah,
definitely. Okay. I think that is such a service, and I am thanking you for me and for my listeners, because motherhood in general can just be hard and lonely, but it doesn't have to be. Like you said, like your podcast is helping like take away at least a little bit of that loneliness. So
yeah,
I guess I kind of just said it because this is what I get out of your podcast, but what do you want people to get out of your show? I obviously feel a little less lonely, but what else do you want people to get out of your show?
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. We just want a place where people feel less alone. And we want to make everyone laugh and to let them know that even those things that feel really weird and hard inside of your like life as a mom, that most of the time they're super normal and that all of us are going through it too. And we felt like when we were going through pregnancy and all of those things, we like some things were too educational, which don't get me wrong, those resources are amazing, but we felt like no one understands moms like moms. And we love hearing from doctors. We love hearing from specialists and experts and all of those things. But more than anything, like if I had a question for something that was coming up in like mom life, I just wanted to hear from other moms. And that was kind of what we wanted with this podcast, was to bring moms to the mic. And that's really like our goal as we have more guests and things. Of course, we want the experts. We want, to bring some educational content as well, but we want it from real moms who know what it's like. And so we just we hope to be like a super relatable, funny place that, sometimes provides education. Sometimes we just provide an episode where it's like, we're all drowning. Like, is anyone else feeling this way? So yeah, that's kind of the whole thing, is we just want to make moms feel less alone.
Thank you so much. And that is truly, and your podcast specifically, but podcasts in general have really been that for me, to help me feel less alone and have like a little adult conversation, even if I'm not actually a part of it. At least it's going on and I can like listen in. So yeah. You used words like funny and relatable. Is that how you would describe the vibe of your show?
Definitely. I would hope the vibe feels like if you were to go out to dinner or drinks with like your other girlfriends that are moms. Like that's the vibe we want. We want to just like chill, chat about what's actually happening in life and how we're actually feeling and laugh about it together. That's the vibe.
Yes. And that is a beautiful vibe.
Yeah.
Like
good vibes.
we all want to do that more often, right? Be able
Yeah,
to just
exactly.
go out to lunch with friends. So thank you for bringing that when it's a little bit harder to get together with all of our mom friends, because getting something on the schedule with all of your mom friends is really hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
Schedules never line up the way that they need to. So
no, you're like, hi, what's your Wednesday look like in 3 months from now? Are you available?
Seriously, from like noon to 2. So this is our window. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions to ask hosts is, what is your favorite episode? But before I do that, to give you a second to think,
okay.
How about you tell me, where can people find you and the show and all of that fun stuff?
Amazing. So you can find our show pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. It's called Mom Group Chat. You can also find us on Instagram at Mom Group Chat, TikTok, Mom Group Chat. Pretty much that's where you can find us. And also everything is linked in our Instagram bio. So if you head over to our Instagram, Mom Group Chat, you'll be able to find everything there. You'll also be able to find me, Shannon, and Whitney's personal Instagram if you want to follow kind of our personal journeys and our kids and all of that. So yeah, that's where you can find us.
Perfect. I will make sure to link all of that in the show notes so that people can find you exactly where they want to.
Perfect.
Okay, and now you are kind of on the hot seat. What is your favorite episode or a couple of episodes? Because I know it's hard to choose just one.
Okay, I'm going to choose like a serious one, which is still funny. Even the serious ones are funny. But and then like a funny one, if that's okay.
Perfect.
So the first one that came to mind is our episode about postpartum and feeling like yourself postpartum, which is something that like I feel is a little bit impossible, which we talk about in the episode. I truly feel like I'm a different person after having a baby. And I think this idea of like getting back to yourself and getting back to the person you were before baby is just like this impossible feat that society is like placed upon us as moms. I'm a fundamentally different person after having a baby and having this huge life and identity shift. So I love the conversation we had in that episode and kind of discussing our experiences and kind of like our expectations of what we thought postpartum would be like and how we thought we would feel. And we got probably the most feedback from that episode of how refreshing it was to hear someone say like, you may never feel like yourself again, and that's okay. So I love that episode. I feel like that's one episode, if I'm ever just having a day, like when you're just feeling like your life is turned upside down, I sometimes revisit that episode and it just reminds myself like it's okay that my life feels a little bit chaotic and I don't feel like the same person I was before. So I love that episode. And then my second favorite is which is kind of more on the funny side, is our episode about alcohol and our relationship with alcohol, missing alcohol during pregnancy or not missing it. And we also tell some personal like stories of trips we've gone on together and things like that. So I love that episode. It's so funny. It makes me, I go back and watch those clips on our Instagram and they make me laugh every time. So I love that episode.
Oh my gosh. That sounds so fun. And I haven't listened to that one yet. So I'm going to need to add it to my list because
it's a good one.
You just need to pick me up.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds like it would do the trick.
Exactly.
So a lot of my listeners, most of my listeners are moms. So I like to ask, is this podcast okay for little ears or is this one to put a headphone in?
I would probably say a headphone in.
Okay.
We do curse sometimes and we're very real about how we're feeling. So I would say, I mean, not every episode, but just to be safe, I would say probably a headphone is best.
Okay, perfect. And truly, I have very much a mix of both types of podcasts in my phone. So you need both, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You need a little bit, some of the ones that like you can have on in the car while you're taking your kids to carpool, but also you need the ones that are just really real and just help you vent sometimes, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't touched on yet?
I guess the only other thing I would say is, we just recently made a Facebook group for moms that has already become such an amazing resource and another place for us to connect. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, the point or the reason we started this podcast is to create a community of moms and make them feel less alone. So we've started that community over on Facebook. If you search mom group chat on Facebook groups, you'll be able to find it. I can also send you the link for the show notes. So I would definitely join that over there. It's been such a great resource to even expand conversations we've had on episodes. If we are talking about a specific like question in an episode, we'll bring it to the Facebook group to kind of like keep that discussion going, which is a really, really fun place to make our listeners feel more involved. And also just to, like I said, hear from real moms. That's really the point of this podcast. So yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, a Facebook group is kind of the perfect place, like you said, to continue conversations, right? Like you get to, especially with a podcast, you're talking to each other, but it's fun to add your listeners into the mix, right? And that's totally a great place to do it. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been a delight to talk to you. And I really have used your show to feel less lonely. So thank you so much for that.
Good. Makes my heart feel so warm. I love it. Thank you so much for having me. And hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Yes. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you know someone who could use mom group chat in their life, will you share this episode with them? Also, if you have the itch to start your own podcast, fill out the intake form in the show notes so I can help you make your podcast dreams come true. Talk to you soon. Kid podcasts have made my motherhood so much easier, and I feel like not very many people know about them. So I really like to talk about them all the time.
I truly didn't know those existed until I started following you and your page.
Oh, really?
I genuinely had no idea.